Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. As always, I am Mike Monteforte from Monteforte Law, here with a good friend of mine, Olguy Songolo. He is from The Difference, which he's going to talk about that. I love it. You can see from his hat, the symbol on his hat. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about it. I love the company name, The Difference. As my clients or anybody that listens to my podcast knows, what we try and do with the podcast is bring information to our clients about services and products that they can use that might be helpful to them, show them this helpful information, and then from there get them into how do I find out more, how do I purchase this, how do I learn about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Olguy, we're going to have you talk a little bit about who you are and your company, and then we'll get to the important stuff like, how do I get my hands on this thing? So if you wouldn't mind, and again, just thanks so much for taking the time to do the podcast today. If you wouldn't mind, just tell me a little bit, or tell my listeners a little bit about, who you are and what you do, and we'll take it from there.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Mike. I truly appreciate it. Happy New Year. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. And Happy New Year to all your listeners as well. So to dive into it, my name is Olguy Songolo. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, originally from Cameroon. I am the CEO of sports medicine, The Difference, and I'm the developer of the Heelless Technology shoe. So that's what I do. That's my profession. About me on a personal level, I did my undergrad at Wilberforce University, and that's an HBCU school based out in Ohio, where I studied general rehabilitation. And then I went on and did my master's in business administration at Grand Canyon University as I was running the company. So that's a little bit about myself. Once we dive into the story, you're going to learn about more of the difference and the history behind it, and my dad and everybody else.
Awesome. So why don't we get right into it, because I love just the product that you have. But just looking at it looks so cool to me. Why don't you just tell me and my listeners a little bit about how did you get into this line of work? How did you come up with the idea, the design? Sure. Tell me where this all came from to get to from this concept, in your head, or maybe that you were talking about, to the point where we are, where we are now. I know it's a lot to ask, but I want to hear it. I love what you do.
So to really understand this, we got to take it a little bit back. So I am not the inventor of the shoe. I'm the developer. The inventor is my father, Dr. Etienne Panka. So we got to step back a little bit. So I'm going to take you on a little journey to bring you to where we are going to be currently now. Awesome. So for your listeners, tell them to strap in for a little bit. So this all starts back in Cameroon, because that's where we are originally from. Cameroon is Central Africa. It's literally right below Nigeria. And my father worked as a professor and also a wrestling coach at the Institute of Health Professions in Yaoundé, also known in French as l'INGS. And when he was getting up ready to warm up one day with his athletes, he dislocated his patella, shifted. He had to go into surgery. And then after surgery, he had to go into rehab. Now, at that point in time, they were sending PTs, physical therapists from Boston University, over into Cameroon to do some more research and studies and interns and everything as well. So one of my dad's physical therapists was the one that was in charge of taking care of my dad. She saw that he was very knowledgeable about his injuries, the physicality of how he got injured, why he got injured. And she said to him, like, you're really knowledgeable of what you're doing and the science in your field. Why don't you pursue your education further and come to the United States and study? My father said, well, two reasons. One, I don't have the money. And two, I don't know how to speak English. So she said, all right, well, there is a scholarship out there. And for those that know scholarships, Fulbright is one of the top known scholarships that are out there. And he was doing sort of like a contest per se for people that were going to be in his scholarship to come to the United States to further their education.
Okay.
So my dad got selected to be part of that Fulbright scholarship out amongst hundreds of, people that were applying out there, not just in Cameroon, but in Africa.
Yeah.
Now, here's where the story gets a little bit interesting before we lead into the United States. So at this point in time, my father had to write all his documentations, his research, and everything that he had. He had to translate it from French to English, but he
Wow.
didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But guess who know how to do that? Dr.
Oh,
Aliko Songolo.
okay.
Okay, now it's going to start to click. So
Gotcha.
Dr. Aliko Songolo, who is actually a professor here at the University of Wisconsin now, he is the one that helped my dad translate all his essays and everything that he needed in order to get the scholarship to come here into the United States.
Amazing.
So in a token of appreciation, my father gave me his last name. So his last name is Songolo. My family's last name is Panka. So that's a level of respect when someone does that to you in Africa, mainly in our country. That's a level of respect. So that's how I got my name,
Okay.
Songolo. Yeah. So just
Cool.
wanted to make sure we can get that in. So
Gotcha.
fast forwarding, Dad is here. He did his doctoral study, and part of his research was musculoskeletal injuries with joggers, because throughout the injury that he experienced, he wanted to understand why. My dad is an avid runner, and he wanted to understand, how is it, as someone that's very well in condition, very well informed, like, how am I getting injured? So that led him on that research, and he wanted to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I could remember it. You're in Boston, so crossing the BU Bridge right there with Charles River Park, where they have the outdoor workout spot. My dad will be there with the VHS camera on the floor, recording joggers just run, just their feet.
Okay.
And I would be there with him, and I'd see him, and I'm like, what is he doing? And I'm sitting there. He's just recording for hours, hours and hours. And he will do this for multiple days. And then afterwards, he will go back to the lab, and then he will assess. And then he says, Olguy, have you noticed something? I said, what, Dad? He says, look at their landing pattern. I said, what? He's like, look how they're landing. The mass majority of them are landing with their heels. Then he went and did a gross anatomy to understand exactly how the foot works. So that's when he dissected the actual foot and found out that heel strikers, or people that land with the heel, experience multiple injuries such as plantar fasciitis, shin splints, heel spurs, and all these other injuries that can happen, because when you run and land on your heel, you are actually not having any shock absorbing mechanism that is there to resist that impact. And when you run, you have a time of suspension where both feet are off the ground. So when you're hitting the ground, you're going to have equal and opposite reaction force, 2 to 3 times your body weight hitting back at you. And when you don't have nothing to handle that, where do you think it's going to go? And the bone of the heel, the calcaneus bone, it is not a shock absorbing mechanism. It is just a bone. It is a static bone. It does not move or change or shift like your phalanges or your metatarsals in the front of your toes. They don't move. So what do bones do? They don't absorb shock. They transfer forces. Okay. And that's where the injuries start to happen, when you keep doing that reaction force on the heel.
That's me all day, because I for years, and I haven't run in a while, but for years, I would run on the treadmill, and it would happen to me all the time, and I could feel how hard I was landing. I'm a big guy, and I had to really, I hardly run anymore or ride an exercise bike most of the time, because I said I can't take the shock on my feet. So just what you're saying resonates with me, because I've been there. So, but amazing of your dad to even just figure this out. See this kind of repeating pattern in the videos that you're taking, and like you said, dissecting kind of the difference in the way people land, and seeing this over and over again. So now he's kind of figured out, okay, here's what seems to be the problem, right? We're putting a lot of stress on a part of our body that really isn't, designed to handle this stress. So he figures out, okay, here's the issue. But and I don't want to get ahead of you, but then we get into, okay, how do we solve it? You know what I mean? Now we know what the problem is. How do we fix it? So kind of once he figured out and made this kind of diagnosis, here's what the issue is. So now what's next? Where does he go from there? Once you guys are looking at this video and figuring out the problem now.
So once he figured it out, it's, well, how do we solve this? And I mean, at this point in time, there were other shoes out there that were trying to figure out similarities to it. And he also attempted, he says, well, a lot of different companies and shoe industries out there have tried this, but it actually hasn't solved the problem. So he says, well, if it's the problem is the root of the problem is the heel, why are we even putting the heel on the shoe? And once that theory hit him, he says, well, let me see if this is actually something let me see if I got something going on. So he took a pair of his own shoes and he took a knife and cut off the heel. He put them on, went out for a jog, came back and said, whoa, this is something. However, I need to know if it's just not only myself feeling this way. I need to know if everybody else is feeling this way. So he used his first test dummy. Hello, me.
You got the job.
Now, mind you, I was young at the time. I was still in middle school. So I'm getting up, getting ready to go to school one day. And I grab a pair of my shoes and I look at it and I'm like, the heel is cut off. I'm like, Dad. Like, Dad, what's going on with my shoes? He says, just put them on and go to school. Now you have to understand at that time, my autonomy was getting shot. I'm like, Dad, you making me go to school like this? People are going to make fun of me because I just take it on and go to school. I said, all right. So I put them on and I went to school and everybody was making fun of me the whole entire time. But when I got back, the first question he asked me was, how did you feel?
Yeah.
And I had to realize that I was comfortable with the shoe. I was more in a sense frustrated that people were making fun of me than actually the shoe. I was like, Dad, the shoe's fine. He's like, the shoe was fine. I was like, yeah. And that's when he says, okay, well, if it's good for him at his age, let me see if it actually works out for my wife and my 3 sisters. Because now he wanted to know if this can work gender, size, and different applications. So guess what? We became the Heelless family. He cut everyone's heels off. And my sisters were going to school with no heels on their shoes. Mom's going to work with no heels on her shoes. And everybody's coming back and giving positive feedback at different ages and different weights and different sizes. So he says, okay, well, now that this is something, let me actually go and do some research. So that's when he went and did a cross-cultural research study in various countries between Europe, Africa, North America, South America, Canada, everywhere, and saw that this is something that is happening with everyone. And by removing the heel, he saw a significant change on how they were responding with their performance and minimizing their injuries. And at that point, he went on to file the patent. So we got the patent. Once the patent was issued, now there was a question on, well, what do we do from now? Do we pursue the company or do I raise my family? Because remember, we're all still young. My sisters are still in high school and I'm still in middle school. He's like, well, what's the priority right now? Do I pursue this or do I focus on my family? So he decided to focus on us. So he let everything dormant for a while. Fast forwarding to where now Olguy graduates from undergrad and I'm sitting here and I moved back to Boston after coming back from Ohio. I said to my dad, I said, Dad, you've had this patent now for a while and what are we doing with the shoe? My dad says to me, he says, well, your sisters are married. They got kids. I did my part. You graduated from college. What are you going to do?
I'm waiting on you.
All right. Now I'm waiting on you. I said, okay, fair enough. Now, mind you, my background isn't rehabilitation. It's not in developing or in business or anything. So I didn't have a clue on how to even start this process. So all I had was his patent with the design on it. I said, well, Dad, the first thing is we need to know what this is actually going to look like. So we did a 3D rendering model of the shoe and we did it out here based out in Boston. Now, here's the issue, Michael. It was really expensive to do that design. It was very expensive. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, if we go this route, we're going to be broke because we can't afford, and this is just an outsole. We don't even have a whole sample prototype. But I says, well, where do we need to go and do the shoes? And that's when I did my research. And I said, well, where's the hub of manufacturing in shoes? China. So I told my dad, I said, Dad, if we really want to get this done, I have to go to China.
Where you got to go.
Yep. My dad says, all right, well, do what you got to do. Figure it out. Let's get you to China. So I had to do some research because there's over 500 manufacturing companies in China. So it was tough. It was quite difficult.
I love just so it doesn't slip my mind. I love what your dad did here. So like people that know me know that I'm a family first guy. I'm very big on, yeah, I run my business, but the work-life balance is huge for me because my priority is my family. It's always been my family. So I understand, even though your dad knew, yeah, I have something that's potentially great, but I'm going to focus on my family. But then when you were old enough, him being able to turn and say, hey, this is here. I did my part. You know, I have this waiting
Yeah.
for you. You know, I have visions of someday. So my kids are in high school, but I have a son and a daughter. Someday, one of them or both of them coming in and taking over for me at, you know, at my law firm and saying, hey, I put this together. It's
Yeah.
something that you can step into, and, you know, I built this and I want you to, you know, come in and take over. So just the fact of your dad kind of just passing that baton to you in that way and saying, okay, you're old enough now, here's the start of something that could be amazing. What can you do with it? I just that just resonates with me in every way because I feel the same. So I need to cut you off there. So,
No.
so you were going to China. Take me back to back to. But I had to get that out there about your dad because I just that I feel the same way in those, you know, sentiments that he had. But
Absolutely.
so take me back now. We're looking for manufacturing to
Yeah.
try and figure this
Um,
thing out.
so we're looking for manufacturing, and that was a challenge for me because again, I didn't know who can actually do the shoe, and it was quite a bit of challenge because of the time difference. So in order for me to have a Skype conversation with them, I had to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning to talk to them over there because of the time difference. So I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning every day for hours trying to have a conversation to meet different manufacturers until finally I found one specific manufacturer. And the reason why I went with them was every other manufacturer that I dealt with, when I send them the picture of the design of the outsole in the shoe, they, yeah, we can do it. They were the one manufacturer that said to us, you're gonna have to come here.
Okay.
We've never seen something like this.
Yeah.
And that is what made me say, okay, Dad, we're going to go with them, because they weren't just about chasing the money. They were like, we need to figure this out because this is a whole nother level that we've never seen before.
I love that. Okay.
And at that point, I said, Dad, let's make it happen. So I went through the research, got the visas, which is a whole nother story. It was quite a process to get that even. So we got the business visas. I traveled there with my designer that I had back then. And so we landed there. Now, here's the reality. Google cannot prepare you enough for when you get there.
Yeah.
You can Google as much as you want in YouTube. It's a whole different story when you actually are there. It's like it hits you in the face, like,
It's real.
whoa,
Yeah.
cultural shock right off the back. I'm gonna be quite honest. It was a strong cultural shock, and the language barrier. It was tough. So we get there, and you know, give the designs. We're trying to get some things going on, and we have to open up some molds. Now, when I got there, I was with my designer. He ended up leaving. We were supposed to be there for 3 weeks.
Okay.
He ended up leaving in about 10 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when he left, I was by myself now.
Yeah. Okay.
So here I am by myself, trying to figure out how to do this shoe.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. And we're opening up different molds, and for people that are in manufacturing, molds is the by far most expensive thing that you have to open when you're manufacturing, because molds are expensive. And for a shoe mold, especially for ours, it was costing us about roughly between $2,500 to $2,700 every time we was opening up a new mold.
Okay.
So when we would reject the mold, that's $2,500 gone.
Okay. That adds up. Oh my
So
God.
it adds up very quickly. And so we did the first design, and then when I got the first design done, I got the vamp and everything, and I sent it over to my dad. I said, all right, Dad, tell me this is the shoe. Tell me we did it. My dad looks at the shoe. He's putting it on. He's like, Olguy, this is not the shoe.
No.
I
Okay.
said, Dad, are you serious? He says, this is not the shoe. He's like, you know what? It's all right. We've already burnt a lot of capital. Just come back home. And mind you, I want to make sure that your audience and listeners know this. We're not doing this with no investors, or this is all personal savings that we're burning through now.
You guys are sinking your own money
We're
into
just
this.
sinking in our own money.
Must want to make you cry with 2,500.
Man, so like, can you just imagine like all of that to just hear this is not the shoe after you went through 7 molds, and you're like, this is not the shoe. And I heard the disappointment in his voice, not disappointed in me, but just I saw, I felt the excitement that he had for a second, knowing that this is my shoe about to come to life. And when it did not have the fruition to come to life, I just felt how it was heavy on his heart. And he says, well, you know what? Just come back. We'll pivot and figure out another way.
Okay.
I couldn't sleep. That was it.
I don't blame you.
I'm in China and I could not sleep. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? He sacrificed a lot for me and my 3 sisters, him and my mother, for us to be here, to work hard, to get our education, to get our degrees. And you're telling me that I'm going to have to just quit because of this? I got up. It was 5 a.m. in the morning for me in China. It was 5 p.m. there. And I called my father and I said, Dad, I'm not coming back. He said, what? I said, I'm not coming back until we get the shoe done the way that it's supposed to get done.
Okay.
And you could hear my mother in the background, like freaking out, like, what does he mean he's not coming back?
He's not coming back.
What does he mean he's not coming back? How is he going to survive? And it was, sorry, I get so, as many times as I do this, I get emotional sometimes because every time I'm saying it, I replay it in my head. And
you're hearing it, right?
Yeah, and I get emotional, so please forgive me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm not coming back. My dad is like, what do you mean? I said, Dad, I'm going to stay here till we get it done. He says, well, how are you going to survive? We cashed out everything. I said, Dad, I'm a black man in China. And that was a joke at that time because there was no black people where I was. So when they saw me, I was like, whoa, superstar, cool dude. I'm like, Dad, I'm a black man in China. I'll figure it out.
Yo, you'll get it.
And I was super determined. And at that point, he saw the seriousness. He heard the seriousness and saw the seriousness in me and said, okay. He brought the family together and said, well, your brother is going to be in China because he wants to get the shoe done. We have to make sure he gets the shoe done properly. Yeah. So he did what any father would do when they believe in their children. He let it all, pulled out his savings, pulled out his CDs, pulled out the 401k, put the house on the market and said, well, Olguy, this is all we got. All my sisters, everybody put the package in. No investors, no nothing. We just all put the package in and said, this is it. Yeah. So now I'm sitting here and I'm saying, well, everyone has literally given everything up. I have no choice but to succeed.
Yeah, you got a lot on your shoulders.
A lot. Trust me, it was quite a lot. So at that point, I said, well, let's put some priorities together. First thing is first. I need to know the basic of this language. I need to know how to speak this language, and I need to know how to navigate. Those are the first 2 things that I said I have to do this in order to get this done right now. So I had a tutor. I had 2 tutors. I got one tutor from the University of Xiamen, which is where the airport was when I flew in, when I came in. That's about an hour away from Xinjiang. And then I got another tutor that was kind of my advisor a little bit. And she was from Russia. She was an English speaking teacher out there. So I had both of them now tutoring me, teaching me the basic of the language. I said, I need to know how to navigate by myself. Yeah. That's 1. 2, I need to know how to get around because taking the taxis was costly. And a lot of them sometimes were not taking me the way that I was supposed to. They're like, well, listen, we can run the meter up a little bit because he doesn't know where he's going.
Right.
Right. So I said, I need to figure out how to move around between the factories. I went and bought a bicycle. I told my supplier, I said, show me where every factory is direct, like no shortcuts. Just show me how to go there. Yeah. And I memorized it. Now, I had a problem. The first time I memorized it, I was memorizing it through people. I said, oh, there goes the lady that's selling the donuts. So if I see this lady, this is where I need to turn. Yeah. But what I did not take in consideration was that lady can move. Yeah, right. Her donut shop is mobile. Yeah. So my first time that I did that, I got lost because I said, well, this is where I'm supposed to turn. And then I realized that was not. So what I ended up doing was marking an X on the floor, on the concrete. I said, the concrete ain't gonna move. So if I see the concrete with the X, this is where I know I need to turn. And so that's how I was navigating with my bicycle when I was there. Yeah. And then we got into production and fast forwarding, we started, things were moving along. I was like, okay, now we can start getting the shoes done. Now, the thing was not having a background in designing, I needed to know exactly how to make such a very scientific and structural shoe so that it can perform the way that it's supposed to. Because once we get into why this shoe is very disruptive and revolutionary, has to do with not just the technology and the patent and the science behind it, but also how the wearer feels. Okay. And that was big for me. Yeah. But I didn't know nothing about making shoes. And this is where I'm a big, my faith, I'm a Catholic guy, so I have a big, huge in faith. And so I'm always like, God, if it's beyond myself, I need external help. Yep. And this is what happened. I'm sitting down one time and I have my head down, Mike, and one of my advisors, who's my advisor now, and he used to work for a very high branded shoe, came and saw me. He says, "What are you doing here? You've been here for over 3 months. No one comes there for 3 months."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm just trying to make people healthy and happy."
Yeah.
He says, "With what?" I said, "I have a shoe that's going to change the world." He looked at the patent and said to me, he's like, "Wow, this is something. This is something." He said,
Okay.
"Well, what's the issue?" I said, "Well, I failed. I don't know where to." He's like, "Well, what are you using for your outsole?" That's how we started. I said, I don't know." He says, "What materials? What density?" He started naming things as a shoe wear
Yeah.
designer
He
knows.
knows
And
what
I'm
they
like,
know,
I
right?
don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. He said, "You don't know?" He said, "No." He said, "All right, meet me here for dinner at 5." I came and met him for dinner, and he had at least 10 different samples of outsoles laid out. It was different materials for outsoles. He says, "Pick this up." I pick it up. He's like, "What material is this?" I'm like, I don't know." He's like, "That's called EVA." He's like, "You want to know how you know it's EVA?" So what? He's like, "Twist it this way, do this." He's like, "What is that?" So I don't know. He's like, "That's rubber. This is how you know. If you want to do this to the rubber, put this amount of heat." He started teaching me certain things.
Wow.
So at this point, I'm like, "Let me go grab my pad and take notes." He said, "If you have to take notes, leave. Either you get it or you don't get it.
Okay.
You're in China."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." He says, "Figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you." So we sat there for about almost 4 hours, and he was going over every single material with me.
Wow.
And then he says, "To take these to your room, go and study them. In the morning, meet me for breakfast. I'm going to have some new samples out for you. If you can tell me what each of it is, then you're ready to do the outsole."
Okay.
I
Okay.
stayed up the whole night
Oh man.
studying this. This is like a true grit story.
Oh man. You're cramming for the test here. Like
Literally, so I'm sitting here, I'm
finals,
up
right?
all night, I'm sitting there, I'm biting stuff, I'm twisting things, I'm heating things up, I'm doing all of the stuff that he showed me. I'm like, "All right, I'm good, I'm ready." The next day I go down for breakfast. He has a whole nother set of designs, and he covered them this time, so I couldn't see it. And he says, "Okay, lift that one up." I lift it up. He says, "What is this?" I look at it. I do exactly what he told me. Do, twist, smell, bite. I'm like, "This is this." He's like, "What about that one?" Doing the same thing. "What about that one?" Do the same thing. Once I was able to identify all, he says, "Now go and make your outsole." And that's how I was able to make the outsole.
Wow.
And
That,
that's
that's incredible. I mean, sometimes things happen for a reason,
oh yes,
I believe that. And the fact that not only you found the right person, but at the exact point in time where,
yes, yes,
you needed to meet this guy at that time
man.
to share this with you. So, wow.
It,
That,
it's literally like I'm like, people sometimes like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes." And I was able to make the outsole exactly. And then after that, now of course, with any shoe, before it comes to the United States, especially when you put claims on it, you have to go through testing.
yeah.
And so we had to get the testing for the shoes. And as we were going through everything, the testing, we hit another hurdle because now there's a waiting line for the testing.
Okay.
This is going to take you out the park. After this story, everything I say to you now is going to be regular. This was what threw me off. And I said, "Okay, this shoe is meant to come out." We're getting everything done. The vamp was okay because I could handle the vamp. For me, with the vamp, I just wanted durability and something that's breathable, a nice cushion. So I was like, I can handle the vamp. Now we have to get the shoe tested.
Right.
There's a waiting list. I'm like, Jesus. They're like, it's going to be quite a while because there's so many other shoes that have to go through it. And the
Yeah.
company that we have to use is what the regulations is to bring it here into the United States.
Okay.
So it was specific, and they had a long waiting list. So now we hit a roadblock, right? I'm in China now for about 6 months at this point. And I'm like, okay, well, my dad is like, "Well, oh, we need a classification number in order for it to be able to come here and, cross customs and clear the port.
Right.
And in order to get the classification number, we have to go through the testing." So I said, Jesus. I said, "All right, Dad, let me see what I can do." So I'm sitting here scratching my head, nowhere around it. I'm looking at the same company was in different cities out in China, and the closest one was 3 months out waiting period.
Man. Oh, wow.
So I said, "Dad, I'm stuck." I'm like, "I'm literally stuck. I don't know what to do. Like, this is out of my control now." So I come from my bike ride because so that was one of the things that kept me like sane while I
Yeah.
was out there, was trying
Yeah.
to ride my bike as much as often. I come back and I see a gentleman with his head down. Now remember, that's how my advisor saw me,
Yeah.
with my
You were
head down. So when I saw him, I said, I recognize that look. And I walked up to him and I said, is everything okay? He said to me, he says, I'm just trying to get a cold glass of water. That's what he said to me. Now I understand. So a lot of people that don't know this, but in the Asian culture, especially with Chinese, they like to drink warm water because it's good for the digestive system and it helps with the immune system and everything. That's their reasoning behind it.
Sure.
But yet it's hot out there as well. So
Yeah.
when it's hot, I personally like to drink cold water.
Cold water. Yeah.
So he was like, they keep giving me warm water, and I just want to
Cold water.
He's like, I just want a glass of cold water. So we instantly related because he was from Jersey. I'm like, I'm from Boston. And he was like, well, he's like, I was like, I got you, don't worry. Now at that point, my Mandarin was pretty good. So I was able to just call the waitress over, man, menu kolai, and she's like, yeah, boom. No problem. She brought
Yeah.
in the cold water and sits there. He's like, oh, thank you. So we get to having a conversation and it's like, well, what are you doing here? I said, I have a product that's going to revolutionize the world. I literally am doing this product to help people. I want them to see them healthier and happier. He's like, so where are you at? Where are the stages that you're at? I said, well, now I'm stuck because it has to go through this company. And quite frankly, they have a long waiting list. So now I'm stuck. He says, well, do you have a sample of the shoe? I said, yeah. He says, do you mind if I see it? I said, sure. I'll go upstairs to the room. I grab the shoe. I bring it.
Yeah.
He looks at the shoe. He's like, wow, this is good. He says, all right, you'll have the testing done in 48 hours. I said,
No way.
I said, wait a minute. I said, it has to go through this company.
Right. 3 months.
He pulls out his business card, hands it to me. Guess what? They just opened up a new office out in Shenzhou, and he was the director of that office.
No way.
Can you believe this? Can you believe this?
That's the. I mean,
I'm like, what?
But at this point, right? You're having different types of adversity. You're overcoming that adversity. I feel like you were owed a couple of breaks here. Just say, something's got to work out. But again, for you, exact right place, right time.
Yes.
You thought to go over and say, hey, something's bugging this person. It's another human being. I'm just going to walk over and say, hey,
I related.
is everything okay, right? Because I'm sure tons of people, walk in and out, and we're all so busy that we don't always notice what's going on with other people. But because you're saying, hey, I've been there, I'm sitting there with my head down. Let me go check in and see how this guy's feeling and make sure he's all right. And I mean, look what that did. A little bit of compassion that you showed.
Long way.
That's incredible. The odds of that this guy says, oh no, here's my business card and it's this company. That's incredible. That's incredible. Wow.
So at that point, I'm like, okay, now we're moving with some momentum, right? And now I'm like, okay, we got this done. We got the classification. Let's finish production. Boom, I get hit. I have to get a root canal. Then we get hit with a typhoon. Then we get hit with an earthquake. Then I break my lower coccyx falling off my bike.
Oh my God.
So all of this happens, not to stretch out the story of the podcast so long, but all of these things happened to me and I still fought through it and said, despite all of this, I'm going to continue, because at every single point in time, it was just quit that kept going through my mind. Quit, stop, figure it out another time. And I said, no, I'm going to get through this. The only thing that's going to stop me is death at this point. So I pushed through it. And finally, the day that we got our shoe, I was heading back and I threw everything. I said, the shoes are the priorities. We had a shipment that was supposed to come out and I had some samples with me. My father hadn't seen the sample, so he didn't even know what the final product looked like. I took the samples and I put it in my briefcase. So I could care less if my other luggages get lost. I needed the carry-on to have, that was the main thing. So my laptop and everything, I said, I don't care if it gets lost, whatever. But the shoe, I have to have the shoe.
Yeah.
I land in Boston. I get here. My mom and my dad came and picked me up. I headed back over there to their place and I pulled out the sample. I said, Dad, I think this is the shoe. And at this point, he takes the shoe. I see the smile on his face because aesthetically it looks pleasing. So he's like, okay.
Okay, all right.
Takes the shoe. He puts it on. And he puts it on. He looks at my mother. I remember this it plays back every time. He looks at my mother. He looks back at me. He says, Olguy, this is my shoe. Oh man, that was it. That feeling right there. That was it for me. I said, "This is the shoe." He said, "This is the shoe."
Oh,
He said, "This
wow.
is the shoe."
Yeah.
And I could see my mom and my sister was there at the time, so we're just seriously excited. I was like, "Wow!" I said, "You know what, Dad? Whew, wow. Oh, excuse me."
All that perseverance, everything you kind of went through and
Yeah,
fought through to have this kind of victory at this point, then you can feel, okay, that was worth it. I
yeah,
pushed through when I didn't want to, and when I wanted to quit and I didn't, I stuck with it. Just to have him say, this is it.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
you. Oh man. Yeah.
It just and it's so I'm trying so hard to like every time I say it, I get emotional because it's like as much as I've said this story quite a bit of times, but it still hits me the same because it's like him and my mother sacrificed so much for us to so to know that, hey, Dad, this was it. And I went through a lot out there. I mean, on a personal level, I lost my relationship because I had to stay out there and focus on the shoe. There was a lot that went on, and for him to say this is the shoe, I said yes. So here it is. This is the shoe. This is what the work was all about. This is the Heelless Technology runners.
Okay.
And as you can see, what the most unique part about this shoe is right here
Right.
with no heel.
No heel.
And I wanted to create a shoe that was not just aesthetically pleasing, but number one, I wanted it to be functional on multiple variants, not just for avid runners. And the good thing about this shoe is mass majority of people also that wear these shoes are not avid runners.
Okay.
They're people that just want to be active, lifestyle.
Yeah.
We saw that a lot of healthcare people are wearing these shoes a lot actually because they're on their feet for multiple hours a day and they start to complain of their lower backs.
Yeah.
So this now actually helps them to alleviate that pain, and also the fact that it's light, 7.4 ounces within the sizes that are there, with an all rubber outsole. So I put a lot of intricate design into the shoe so that it doesn't have just the functionality, but also the aesthetics, and to also allow the foot to work the way that it's supposed to, mechanically and functionally.
And you're right. At the same time, it's still got to look cool, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you want it to look cool and yeah, have that functionality as well. So my wife works at a hospital in Salem, Mass, and so she's on her feet all day
Mm-hmm.
long, and so she always has issues with her back and her feet, and trying different hospital shoes and
Yep.
things like that to help her. So I think of her just when you were mentioning people in healthcare that are on their feet all day,
Absolutely.
but at the same time, it's gotta look cool too, because
Yes. Yes.
people have to see it and say, wow, well, I like that, because
Yep.
you know even though it may have this certain function, people still want to have some style
Yes.
and want it to look cool. So and it's so different. It's just you can't help but look at that and say, wow, I never I haven't seen anything like that before, and it's so interesting to look at.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was for me. Having three sisters and a mother, they were like, listen, these got to look cute. If we're gonna wear these, they got to look good. So, I, while me and my father, we focus more on the functionality, my sisters and some of my friends were like, they got to look cool. So I really had to take my time to really design everything about the shoe is customized from the outsole to the vamp to the insole. And I'm very much conscientious about the environment. So I wanted to use the biodegradable materials that can easily be, green friendly. So
Yeah,
I'm very conscientious about that. And also the fact that I want you to look at it and be like, wow, this is cool.
it's
And
cool.
so,
Yeah.
and that's what you get. And you know what's funny? You just said the same exact thing of how we came up with the company's name. Because when people were trying these on in beta testing, they kept saying, this is different. This is different.
Yeah.
This is different. And that's how we came up with the difference, because that's you naturally advertise the brand because of how it feels and how it fits.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that with everything that we do with the shoe, that you really feel that difference.
Okay.
And our biggest thing now that I'm excited about is trying to get the seal of approval from the Podiatric Medical Association, because what we found out is we have diabetics now that are wearing these shoes a lot. And the reason behind that is because a lot of them that have neuropathy, they have to offload, especially with phase 1 and phase 2, where they have to offload, which means they have to take the pressure off their heels.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's no shoe on the market that can completely remove the pressure off the heels except the difference.
No kidding.
And so now, we're trying to get some capital so we can apply for the application to get that, to start to move into that direction and to infuse a little bit more capital into marketing and restock our inventory. So that's where we are right now. And like I said, we've bootstrapped this. Like we've literally done this. And I'm just happy because for everyone that actually had a chance to put these on, wear them, the feedback that I get with, wow, where have these been for this many years? I've been having these problems. I used to run. I stopped running because of these injuries. Now I feel like I can get back into running. Thank you so much. When are you going to come up with the all blacks? Because I'm required to wear them for work. And these are good problems to have.
Right,
And so,
absolutely.
what we want to do is just let the world know that the difference is here. We want to start to heal the heel. That's why I'm here. That's what I am doing. So the company now, we're a family company. It's myself, my dad, and my sisters and my mom. And we're based out in Leominster. That's where our headquarters is, and that's where we function out of. And pretty much, we sell everything online. We have one brick and mortar store, which is out in Leominster, where you can go and try them on if you want. And but for most of the part, everything is strictly online because we have to really do a strong pivot, especially when COVID hit.
Right, right.
Yeah, that stopped a lot
The
for
way we
everyone.
normally would do business and go into the store and buy something
Hmm.
couldn't happen. You can't go in and hang around and say, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
try on a few different things and
Yes.
walk around, and you can't do that. So lots of companies uh, had to kind of make that same pivot like you did and say, okay, well, what can we do? Can't do business the way we used to. What can we do?
Yes.
Well, let's just try and do something online. So tell me, so that's a good segue into um, tell me how we learn more. How can I go and check out your website, whether I'm interested in just learning more about it, learning more about the company, other than going to the brick and mortar store
Mhm.
and trying things on.
Yeah.
Where can I direct people to go to learn more about this? And I love the history of the company, and that you're a family company, and the
Thank you.
story is fantastic. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people, especially that moment you had with your dad saying this is it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's such an
Oh,
amazing thing, amazing moment that
thank
you
you.
guys had as a family. Um, so talk to me about uh, how do I get how do I direct people that follow me and listen to my podcast? How do I get them to you to learn more about this and see more of the product?
Well, the best way to see the product is to go onto our website. It will literally break everything down to you. Our website is smthedifference.com. So if they go on smthedifference.com, they can see the website, and it breaks everything down. If you want to get really dive into the science of it, there's the science behind it all, and we have a video and everything that explains the science for those that are really interested in understanding where this comes from, and also the claims to see that it's backed up, because this is a scientific shoe with research and studies done behind it. And I think that's one of the differentiation factors of what makes us niched. We put a lot of effort into this. This was not something that happened overnight. And with the patents and the trademarks that we had to do, especially when we manufacture overseas, there was a lot that was invested into this. So if you definitely want to learn more about the shoe, smthedifference.com. If you want to order the shoes, smthedifference.com. Um, we also have, there's many platforms. You can go on our Facebook and order it from there. SM The Difference is our handle. Same thing on Instagram. And we are also on Amazon and also Afterpay. So we integrated Afterpay, which is one of the features that I really like, because Afterpay allows you to pay it in increments. So we retail right now for $120 for the shoe. We have the warehouse here, so we do ship out of the United States. So you typically get your shoes within 2 to 3 days, depending on which type of shipping you choose, which is a good thing, because a lot of our customers were curious on where is it shipping from. I'm like, we're right here. The warehouse is here in Massachusetts.
Coming from
So
here,
you get them right
maybe
off the
in
back.
a couple of days.
Absolutely. And from the website, you can contact us via email. You can contact us. Our phone number, everything is on the website. There are people that, a little bit old school, like my dad says, and they're not really tech savvy when it comes to ordering stuff. So they're like, I'd rather call or send a check in,
Yeah,
which is, it's perfectly fine.
sure.
At the end of the day, we want to just put, some shoes on some feet.
Right,
That's what we
right.
want to
And
do.
that's what's important. And I like that, how you're talking about this was researched. And that's a testament to your dad as well, because when you were earlier on in the process
Mhm,
and he tried one on and he said, no, this one isn't the one,
mhm.
if you and your dad and your family, if all you cared about was getting this thing to market and not necessarily whether it was right or not, your dad could have easily said, well, it's not exactly right, but let's go with it. But
Right.
he didn't. He said, you know what? No, this isn't the shoe. And then so now you're back to boots on the ground and trying to figure this out. You're learning another language to try and figure this out and learning the science of it to the point where you're trying to get it right. And then, your dad tries it on and says, this is it. This is the one. I mean, just the fact that you went through that process, that tells me, it makes it obvious to me that you cared about what you're putting out there. We're not
Absolutely.
going to put out anything and hope for the best. You're trying to put something out there that's going to be good for people and solve a problem
Yes.
that so many people have. And despite the fact that your dad could have said, well, this is close enough, let's go, but he said, no, 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 this isn't the one. And then that made you have to go do all that additional work that you had to do to say, no, this is it, we've got the right thing now. I
Yeah.
mean, that's amazing. It's a testament to you guys and to your family that you took the time to do this right. So
Absolutely.
I will make sure that when we share this, that we'll have the links to your website so that anybody that's following along can go on and find out more about it. The science is there if they're up for learning about the science, or if they just want to say this looks cool, I want it, and then they can order it.
Yeah.
They can do that too.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think this is something that could be beneficial for. I mean, it's limitless, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I mean,
from older folks that I see every day that have issues with getting around and are constantly trying to find the right type of footwear that's going to help them, or even to people like my wife that work in healthcare and
mhm,
she's on her feet all day. How do we alleviate that stress off that part of the body that really wasn't designed to take this kind of that pounding and that
absolutely.
stress? So I just it's an amazing story. Everything, from your dad's original research to you making this happen in
Thank
China,
you.
and then to actually putting this thing out there into a real tangible thing that people can go and order is amazing. I think people are going to really enjoy hearing just the story of the company and then being able to go
Oh
get
man.
this finished product. So
Thank you. Thank you.
this was fantastic. I appreciate you so much taking the time to educate me about the company and about the product. I think that my clients that listen to this are going to really the story of your family is going to resonate with them for sure. But being able to see the product and that it works, but it looks cool too. That's awesome. So smthedifference.com. That's where you can find out more info. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to me about this and tell
Uh,
me
this
about your
was an
company, your family.
this
So,
was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for bringing the awareness to it. At the end of the day, what we want to do is bring that awareness. It's been dormant for a while, and people have been suffering from a lot of injuries that could have been solved. But I always say, things happen for a reason, and when it's time for your fruit to ripe, it will ripe.
yeah,
So we're at this point, and for me, it's just everyone that knows me will always say, well, what does Olguy always say? I want to see people healthy and happy. I want to leave something that can be generational to help people to perform better, to feel better, to give them longevity. I mean, when I see my grandmother who's back in Africa, at the age of 80 plus, wearing these and going out for a walk and she's
yeah,
feeling good, it makes me feel as if, like, yes, I want not just her to feel that way, but everyone. So that's why we really want to get this out there, push it out there, And, I know for a couple of quick things before we get off, the vent material that we use, it's a fly knit material. It stretches. Cause I know a lot of times people say, well, I have a wide toe box or I have a narrow toe box. I say, well, don't worry, because when you use a fly knit material, it stretches. And I use the double fly knit material. And I took in consideration of the durability of it, because I wanted to make sure that you're not just sitting here spending $120 and then in the next 2 months you got to spend another $120. So I
Yeah,
was very conscientious about the average person that will spend this money to have not just that comfort, but for that performance as well. So don't worry, for the wearers, for people that are going to be interested in this and wearing them, don't worry about, they're going to conform to whether you're wide toe boxed or narrow toe boxed. They're going to stretch out to where you want it to. And then if you're narrow, they're going to be right there and you're going to have that durability. Our women's sizes do run small. So I want to make sure I mention that. So if you are a woman ordering these shoes, order one size up from your original size that you wear.
good to know.
Yep, just for women. Men's sizes run true to size.
Gotcha.
So I hope that everybody gets a chance to experience them, and welcome to the difference. Yeah.
This is awesome. This is fantastic, Olguy. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much again
Thank you.
for
Thank
taking
you.
the time. This was great. I'm going to send everybody there to check it out. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. Please stay in contact with me.
all right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day. Cheers.